Now, we've managed to come across our own elephants, and these are not the ones that were at the dam cam. These are all the way on Cheetah cutline, and they're slowly but surely moving southwards. It looks like a really nice big herd. There's a number of different elephants that I can see on both sides of the road, and I'm hoping that if we spend some time with them, we maybe, just maybe, might make it all the way down towards Chitwa. It's a long way from here, but you never know. They're heading in that general vicinity, and a herd like this down at the dam would be spectacular if they got there just as the sun was setting, because it would be wonderful light down there, and hopefully it's warm enough that they might even start playing in the water itself. And we've really enjoyed watching the Ellies at Chitwa. They've swam many times for us, and it's always interesting watching these guys go deep into the water and play and push each other around. It's a phenomenal thing to watch. Although it looks like they're changing course a little bit and heading more towards the east, which is into Torchwood. Now, since I'm going to just reverse back so that they cross the road in front of us, because the rest of the herd is starting to come from our left-hand side. So you'll see there's a few of them there, and then there's a whole bunch of them starting to come now from the bushes, and it is a monstrous herd. I don't know where they were hiding during the day, during this morning's drive, but it is a lot of them, and there's lots already on our, like I say, on our right hand side, so inside Torchwood already. So I'm just going to go quite far back, because I'm hoping that they're going to start filing out in front of us, and we'll get most of the herd crossing in our direction. But that female there is very unique. You can see she's got a massive tear in her ear, so there's a big V shape that's been torn out, and you can see actually where the remainder of their ear is flapping down there. That would have been very painful. Now, Linda, you're wondering at what age do Ellies get their teeth? Well, they are born, and soon after the teeth start to come out. It's within the first 3 months they're starting to show signs of those teeth coming through, and then from there on you'll find that the teeth are out and exposed, and they're starting to use them. The reason why they don't need teeth too early is because, well, they have milk that they can suckle on. So at 3 months you start to see the little showings of them, and then from there they push forward, and eventually you'll find that they are out completely exposed just after that. So, and the tooth, when it's the first set of teeth that they get in those first few years, are tiny little teeth. They're very small in comparison to what they'll have when they are much older. So they have these tiny, small, little, round, almost pebble-like teeth. And then by the time they reach fully grown adults, it's almost a massive bar of rigid, huge dental structure that is protruding out of the mouth. So it's quite cool to see how the teeth themselves grow, not only the elephants. But like I said, this herd is huge. I can see a whole bunch more now starting to come out. They really are a big unit. Jamie, Oklahoma, you're wondering why we never see oxpeckers on elephants. Well, Jamie, the reason is elephants are very good at keeping themselves clean, so there's not enough parasites to warrant the oxpeckers landing on them. They also have this trunk, and they have these ears that causes them to be able to flap and make a lot of movement, and that disrupts the oxpeckers quite often. So it's unfortunately the reason why they don't. It's also they don't have much hair, and so not really great places for the oxpeckers to find parasites. You need hair for parasites to cling onto and then get into the skin. And you will find the odd tick on an elephant, but it's really in such low numbers that the oxpeckers are not really able to find a massive food source, and there's much easier animals to feed off, like impalas, nyalas, kudu, buffalo, rhinos, and all of the others. So that's why you don't see too many of them there. Now you can see they're crossing over just a burnt section. So for those of you that are new viewers to Safari Live, this section was burnt fairly recently. It's called a fire break, so it's burnt on purpose. It's a controlled burn that's done to make sure that if there is a fire on the left side of the road, that it doesn't jump to the right side, and we don't get too many areas being completely burnt and completely destroyed. So that's why they burn them, and it's just basically to break a fire if it did come along. But look at this, there's just elephants appearing everywhere out of the bush. Paul, you're wondering how much a baby elephant will weigh? Well, when it's at birth, will be anywhere between a 100 kilograms and 150 kilograms, so between sort of 200 and 300 pounds at birth, which is, as you can imagine, a rather large animal to get out of the system. And so it's a very difficult process for a female elephant, and she becomes a little bit on the cranky side when she does give birth. And it really is quite something to watch. I have been fortunate enough to see that right at the tail end of a birth, just as the baby dropped, and it, I can tell you, is quite something. That poor female, I feel sorry for her in those situations. And you can see they're just a little bit weary now because there's a car in front of us, and they're not 100% sure whether they want to cross between the cars or if they're going to come behind us. I think they've opted to rather come behind us at this stage. Listen to the little one talking. It wants milk. I know James is saying that was his best Ellie sighting as the Ellies were approaching there. We don't realize how fortunate we are here at Djuma and in the Sabi Sands and Greater Kruger Park region. We have a high density of elephants to start with, and on top of that, a lot of our elephants are fairly relaxed, and we get a lot of intimate, close encounters with our Ellies around the vehicles, lots of interaction of big herds, and it really takes you going away from this area to realize just how fortunate we are when we see herds of this magnitude moving around. At the end of the day, a lot of the reserves in the world are losing elephants, and the populations are not growing, so to be in a place like this is always very special. The only other place I've been to that really, there's two other places I've been to that really is just elephant heaven. One is the Chobe River up in Botswana. It is absolutely insane the number of elephants that are up there. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them that spread around on the river system in the dry season, so it really is quite incredible. And then if you go up to Savo East National Park, that's just incredible because of the sheer size of some of those elephant bulls there. That's a lot of the last remaining 100-pounder elephants are in that area, and they are magnificent individuals to see. Now look at this tiny little baby. Isn't it cute? That's still very little, that one. I would say it's under a year old at this stage. Look, it's just going to greet the other big one. Hello, who are you? A little elephant handshake, putting trunks in each other's mouths. It's just to check who everybody is, make sure that they all know each other. A little greeting, so it's much like when lions will put their heads together in a bond. It's the exact same thing. Isn't that cool? Eleanor, you're wondering about Fang, and I think you and many others, including myself, are wondering where she is, what's happened to her, is she okay? At this stage, still no news, I'm afraid, and we have not seen any sign of her, haven't heard anything about her, haven't seen any photos of her, so I'm not sure where she is at the moment. I'm hoping that she's going to make an appearance soon. We have started to see some big herds coming back into this area. It should mean that a lot of more elephants should start coming, and hopefully Fang's herd will be one of them. Now there's this big female that's just sitting straight behind Senzo at the moment. Hello, girl. Are you coming to say hello? Isn't this spectacular? I could do this all day, every day, sit amongst these guys. There's something about spending time with Ellies that is magical in every single way possible. See, there's a bit of dusting going on, the sun is setting in the background. This is not just the most beautiful scene to see all of these Ellies together. Now, no bulls, funny enough, that I've seen yet. I would think in an elephant herd this size that there would have been some big bulls, but at this stage, none that I can see. Ooh, Jackie, you're wondering if elephants will get upset if lions come around. Most certainly, Jackie. If lions had to pitch up now, they will be sent scuttling to the hills. These elephants will chase them as quick as possible, try and get rid of them, make sure that those lions know that they are the boss and that they are in control of what's going on. And so you will find that lions will be sent packing by this herd. Now, Senzo, you're about to make a friend on your left-hand side here. Two friends, actually. They're coming to say hello to Senzo. They were having their trunks out at one stage, just sort of sniffing at Senzo and seeing who he is and what he's doing. There we go. Senzo, you must say hello back to them. They want to be friends with you. And here comes the rest of the herd. How cool is this? There we go, Senzo's waving to the elephants. Very cool. We've still got 2 bulls that are messing around, a couple of the babies at the back end. So lots of Ellies still to come over the road. And it's not just these guys that you see on your side, there's still some deep in the bush as well. It's a little baby that's just grumbling because it wants food, so it's getting upset because mom is not stopping. And then the typical teenagers having a bit of a go at each other. Try to keep quiet because I want you to hear the sound of the tusks hitting together when these two go together. It's really... There you go, you can hear it, a little bit of knocking. This Ellie on the right has definitely been swimming somewhere, so I think these elephants must have come from Buffelshoek Dam, which is probably not the best thing. As we were talking about earlier, that lions will be sent scurrying and packing if elephants are around, and if these guys were at Buffelshoek Dam, I don't think we're going to find any sign of Tinyo still being in that area, unfortunately. So we'll go and have a look, but I think he might have been pushed along by these Ellies. So I'm going to go back quickly because the rest of the herd has crossed over and they're all just sitting quite close to us. You two now having a full game. Maybe they want to keep up with us. There we go. So boys will be boys, as they say. So I'm just going to go back and see if we can't get the rest of the herd crossing in front of us here. So like I was saying, there are quite a number of them because here comes a whole nother section that's about to come over the road as well. I'm sure they're going to join up with these guys and we'll see them all coming. Just want to get a little bit further down. There we go. But they just spread out all in front of us here, slowly but surely approaching to where we are. And they are so relaxed this afternoon. There's been not one sign of aggression, bar the 2 playful youngsters in the background there. Everybody else is in super chilled mode. They're feeding and taking it very easy. So Paul, you're wondering at how many babies can an elephant have and at what age do they become pregnant for the first time? Well, Paul, it's obviously dependent on a number of things, but they will start becoming sexually active at 12 years old. Now, most of the elephants in this particular system will be lucky if they reach 50, 55 years. So generally they're going to calve every 4 years. So what is that? We can say 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36... 40, 44, 48. So we're looking at probably between 7 and 10 young ones in their lifespan, which is quite a number considering that there's not very many predators of elephants within this area, and we're just being overrun by elephants at this stage. We've got them on our left, our right, in front of us. Sorry if my cap gets in the way, I do apologize. I'm trying to hunch down. Then you can see a big female that's just feeding next to us. So she's taking... Senzo, you've got another friend on your side. Dixon, who's in Mara FC. Hello, Dixon. And it would be nice to finally meet all of the team in the Mara. I'm sure Senzo sends his hello. Senzo, did you say hello to Dixon as well? There we go, a little thumbs up. And you're saying you're loving this elephant sighting. Well, Dixon, hopefully one day we'll be able to bring you out here to South Africa and you can come and spend some time and see all the Ellies of South Africa up close and personal like this. It's so cool that we have people from 2 different countries that are enjoying the wilds of their respective country, or of the other respective country, and are watching and seeing, and as much as we are in disbelief of what we see in the Mara and jealous of the incredible landscapes and the crossings and the migration and the cheetah brothers and those kind of things, we have our own specialities here. And, well, the elephant herds that are around us and in close proximity are one of those special things. And so, Dixon, I'm glad you're enjoying it, and like I say, I look forward to meeting you in the future at some point. Because I'm not quite sure when I'm going up to the Mara. I think it's in October, but I know that Taylor will be up there fairly shortly, and she's really looking forward to it. And she will be back here, though, first, before she goes up to the Mara, so don't stress everybody. But she will be heading up sometime this month. And these two are really not letting up on the game. There's another big female that's coming behind us here. So I'm just going to go back so she too can cross in front of us. In fact, it looks like two young males that are coming this way. No, it's definitely a female and one male. Here she comes. There's a big old girl. You can see it, tatty-ish ears, sunken temples. So an old individual. Hello, beautiful girl. And off she goes. Now, there's just one bull that's left now on the left-hand side of the road that hasn't crossed into Torchwood. The rest are going in deeper, and we're going to lose visual of them fairly shortly as they disappear into those thickets. Wonderful. Cardinal Point. Now, this is a big question, and one is probably quite interesting. You want to know if elephants that are raised in rehabilitation centres that are re-released are more susceptible to poachers than wild elephants because of their trust in humans. Possibly. I don't know if any research has been done on it. Knowing the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust in Kenya and the work that they've done, and a number of the elephants that they've released, they have had some of them that have had poaching incidents, but no more than what the wild elephants do. And the reason why is because most of those orphans, when they are released, end up going into wild herds. So they go into herds that are aware of humans and try and keep them away. The big bulls will join up with, the younger bulls will join up with the bigger bulls as askaris and follow those around, and they learn that humans in certain areas need to be careful of them, and so they try and avoid them. So even though they might trust certain people, elephants are clever enough to recognize the differences between people, and you'll have a situation where they'll know, okay, this area that I'm in is safe, and this area outside of the park or in an area close to the boundaries might not be, and they'll be a lot more wary of what's going on there. So it's interesting to see, and I remember at David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust that in Savo East, the elephants that had gone wild used to come back towards the stockades and would be very relaxed, but outside of that, they tended to be a little bit more nervy and wouldn't really be too trusting of what was going on, unless it was the guys that had actually worked with them when they were babies, and they were able to then recognize voices and varying other things. But our last bull is crossing over the road, so we're going to probably carry on and try and see if I can't go and find Tinyo while there's still a bit of light, and see if there isn't any tracks. But that was absolutely wonderful, and seriously enjoyed that sighting. I must be honest, it was really nice to see, and we even missed half a herd, so that gives you an idea of just how big this herd was. Half of them have already crossed over before we got here, so really quite special to see herds of that size. Now, I believe James is still driving around and still looking for sausages, and not of the warthog type, but of the furry lion type.
Sausages of the warthog type? Oh, I know what he means. He means the little ones, of course. They do look like sausages, don't they? Yes, we are. Well, we're not, actually. We're not. We've given up on the sausage tree pride. We've got word of another pride that is not far from, well, is quite far by Djuma standards, but not too far from by our standards here. And they're on a zebra kill apparently, so we'll head across there as fast as we can. We'll definitely be there before the end of the drive, rain allowing. That storm that started off, Fergus said, haha, look at that tiny cloud over there, putting all its rain onto one tiny little area. And I said, haha, you know what happens with small clouds, don't you? They get bigger, don't you? And he said, nah, not this one. Well, there it is. It's now covering a front some 10 kilometers in width. And it's coming this way, Fergus. That's Fergus nodding. Now Tesla, aged 7, and Ben, aged 8, you're wondering about what kind of spiders and insects, I suppose, other invertebrates that do we get here. Well, it's very difficult to say. There are lots and lots of spiders. We get lots in our camp, crab spiders and solifuges and wall spiders and hunting spiders, so lots of those. Then my favorite insect, of course, which is you find them all over the world, is the cicada, and I can hear them in the forests when I drive down here, when we come down to this area. And then when we're over here, well, there are lots of flies around, many flies sitting on the animals that have died and some of the animals that haven't died, lots of flies. And there are also dung beetles, plenty of dung beetles, we see them quite often. And so you'll probably find that there are at least 900 different kinds of bugs and spiders. Isn't that amazing? But you know, I haven't been here long enough to know them all. There's a little fellow in camp, you remember Steph, Tesla and Ben, he's normally on walk when he's at Djuma, and he's managing our camp, and he's got his little boy in camp. His name is, what is his name again? It's Blake, that loves insects and spiders, and he goes and he finds them all the time around camp. I just blanked suddenly on his name. Funny how that happens. Tesla and Ben, it won't happen to you for a while, but when you get to my advanced age of life, well, from time to time, your mind just goes blank. Now, I believe that Tristan is not blanked on any names, and he has also remembered what kind of animal he's looking at.
Now, we were going to see another whole herd of elephants, but they've already crossed into Torchwood. I'll try and just get their back end of them because they are here in front. They've moved quite quickly. I thought they would take a little bit longer than what they have. So I'll try and show you now some of them, because there's a very cute little baby in amongst them. Where have you gone, little one? There it is. You can just see it's moving around in the middle of that group. So just behind all the adults, trotting along, trying to keep up with everybody. I think the adults are moving too fast for those little legs to walk, so it's having to run and trot rather than to actually walk properly. But they too are also disappearing deeper into Torchwood, and so we'll probably leave the herd there. But I thought the whole herd had crossed, and then this group came out again, so absolutely massive. I was just saying to Senzo, I reckon there must easterly direction, so I reckon they'll get to Chitwa, but probably not in time for us to see it. I think they'll probably only get there around 7-8 o'clock tonight, but still very cool to see nonetheless. Amazing how quickly they disappear as well. You'd think these big animals like this would be easy to see, but look at that. As soon as they start getting behind some sort of thicket, that grey coloration just melts into the bush and gone. Oh, we've got to have a little feed first, so one of them is allowing us one last little view before it heads off into the thicket. Very cool. And gone. Nice. Tony, you're asking at what age do male elephants start growing tusks? Well, Tony, both male and female elephants here in Africa have tusks, so both, regardless whether it's male or female, will start showing tusks at around 4 years old. That's when they start to just come out of the lip a little bit and you can actually see them. So 4 years is when you first start to see tusks on a elephant, whether it be male or female. Now in Asia and in Sri Lanka and in India, you will find a situation. Yes. So, that's the first update I've gotten, which I'll get back to the elephant now, but this is the first update I've heard in many months of a large herd of buffalo. Can you believe that there is a large herd of buffalo that is moving southwards from Manyeleti into Buffalo's Hook, and apparently it is a very large herd, which is 200-300 animals. Now that is the first time I've heard of a herd of buffalo in the last year coming anywhere near this northern sector, so that's very exciting, and hopefully they continue to come southwards towards Djuma, and we'll get to see them tomorrow. But back to our elephants, I was saying that in Asia, and you'll find that the Asian elephant, the males tend to have tusks, not the females, and it will be a very similar lifespan for them, and you'll find that the tusks show, but their female, there you even find sometimes the males don't have tusks, whereas here both male and female generally do have tusks and will start to show fairly early on. Right, now I'm going to head towards the fire break because these elephants have come from Buffalo's Hook Dam, and they might have chased these elephants. So Tulan, who's 5 years old. Hello Tulan, how are you today? I hope you are well. You want to know if we've got balloons like the other place, being the Masai Mara. Well Tulan, unfortunately we don't. Sorry Tulan, I thought I spotted something. So we have to just check because sometimes things lie in the bush, and it looked like the mane of a male lion's head. So I'm just checking. No, it's a bush. I'm mistaken. But Tulan, no, we don't have hot air balloons, which is a big shame. I really thought it would be very nice to have a hot air balloon here, and I'm sure many other people would love to take a balloon over. But the reason why they don't have hot air balloons here is because at the moment there's a little bit of an issue with poaching. And poaching, they're trying to keep all of these things out of the air so that there's not people flying around here that they don't know that could maybe harm our rhinos. So that's why we don't have balloons. But we do have a drone, and the drone sometimes goes up into the air and you get the same view as the balloons. Right, now talking about somebody who likes balloons and has actually been in the balloons himself, Mr. James Hendry, let's go get his opinion as what it would be like to have a baboon in the balloon in the Sabi Sands. Whoopsie.
I'm not sure what just happened there. There are some wildebeest over there. The airstrip is up top there, and I would stop, but there's an enormous L'Orange truck coming up behind us, and well, if it goes past us, the amount of dust it's going to produce is going to make taking a safari entirely impossible for the next 3 hours or so. That's very hugely exaggerated, but you know what I mean. Now, Tula Ann, aged just 5, you want to know what it's like to be in a hot air balloon. Tula Ann, it is the most special thing. You know, if you haven't been in one, you can't really describe it. It's very, very quiet, unless they're putting the hot air into the balloon, then it's very loud. But it feels like you're floating on a very calm piece of water. So I guess it feels a little bit like being in the bath, if you like, but not quite as wet. So it just feels like you're floating. And you know, the best part, Tulan, is that there's no control over the balloon. You can't control it. You can't turn left or turn right. You can make it go up and down, but that's all. And so you just have to take what you get. You see what you can see, and normally you can see space like you can't believe, and you can see all sorts of different kinds of animals, and it is very, very special. It makes you feel very peaceful. Excuse my hat flapping up and creating a lot of wind noise. It is on account of the wind that it is flapping up. The airstrip is just over there, so I'm hoping we'll be able to get those lions before the rain sets in. And I have to give Fergus his coffee. It is getting blacker and blacker and blacker to the south, which means that the rain is coming. It's in the rain, see? Apparently he is not in the rain, but he is in a signal black hole. Now, this is starting to look a little worrying, I must confess to you. I don't feel like we've been this close to a very large storm for some time. anyway. As long as we are stationary, we should be able to ward it off. Oh, there's quite an interesting bird there. There's this truck. Oh gosh, I'm going to have to let this truck go past us. It really is a nightmare trying to take a safari on the main road. You see the bird there, folk? It is the black-shouldered kite. Go on. I can still see him. And I've actually seen this very black-shouldered kite plying his trade over here many times. And what he's doing, he's flying very low at the moment because the wind is much lower, which means he's able to hover much lower down. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Well, Gillian, yes, it certainly does. You said it all looks a little ominous. It certainly is ominous indeed. And who knows what will happen? Oh, you can see the red earth grass there is flapping away, and as I nonchalant, it's not. Is it a black? It is a black shell. No, it's not. Has it caught something? Yes, it caught a lizard. Is it? I think it is a lizard. Now let's watch him. As I'm just talking about this nonchalantly while Fergus produces some quite astonishing camera work. Can't be going back for a second, surely. Yep, no, going to sit and eat it there. That's very cool. How wonderful was that? Well done, Fergus. Good job. You? Exquisite Bliss, you were asking about tornadoes and if we get them here in the Mara. No, not as far as I know. I mean, I've certainly never seen one. I'm not sure exactly what conditions are required to create a tornado, but I think you need seriously flat land before you get anything else, and then I think you need obviously swirling atmospheric pressure. And I don't think that a tornado would occur in an area like this because I think it's too hilly. I don't think it's nearly flat enough for the development of a tornado. I'm no weather expert, so I might be wrong, but that's what I think. And in some parts of South Africa you get tornadoes, but in a place like Djuma you won't. The gentle undulating topography there I think breaks them up. But in the flatlands of the Free State in South Africa, which is where much of our agriculture is done, or much of our arable land is, you do get them there. From time to time. There is a Kohan. Let us have a look at this Kohan. For the orange truck has stopped in front of us, and I think its driver is relieving himself, which of course is not something that anybody should have to see. Hello. Are you a standard issued black-bellied bustard? Are you? Let me have a look. Can you see it there, Fergus? Yes. Let me have a look. Let me have a look-see. East African birds. Oh, that's wonderful. Bustard. Yes, I would describe it as a standard-issued black-bellied bustard. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? They're not very concerned about us or the incoming deluge. Alrighty, I think we're going to try and move on and see if we can't catch up with the lions. It's quite nice over where Scott is. Straw egg, you're wondering if that kite is a scavenger or not. No, straw egg is not a scavenger. What it does, it normally catches rodents. That may have been a baby rodent, perhaps, that it had fished out of a nest. They have, I think it's a pretty unique, I'd say almost unique ability to see ultraviolet reflected off uric acid. And many rodents leave urine trails as they run, and those urine trails reflects ultraviolet radiation, and that allows, and that's what the black-shouldered kite sees. So it's really getting very unpleasant out here now. Anyway, we shall continue doing our best, stoically moving on. The airstrip is just up here, but whether we'll get there before we get smashed by the rain, I'm not sure. Rebecca, how's the weather up top? Apparently it is windier up here where we are. We get to the top of this hill. I'm just going to drive past all these zebra and wildebeest. I'm quite pleased to see them close to the lions, because I'm hoping those lions will get up and go hunting at some stage. That is, of course, if we don't get slammed by the rain. So apparently we need to stay with us, so just bear with me in the wind, everybody. Sinak, you say, could that kite attack the black-bellied bustard? No, the kite is smaller than the black-bellied bustard, and I need to remember to keep telling both myself and everybody that, of course, the screen gives you a very false sense of size, because, well, you know, a martial eagle and a sparrow can look exactly the same size on your screen if you don't relate them with something that is of known size. And so that kite is actually quite small. It's probably about that big. And the black-bellied bustard stands about that tall. So, I mean, at full wingspan, the kite is that size, but its body is only about that big. So it's much smaller. Now, let's see if we can't spot these lions. We're coming up to the airstrip now. Look for a couple of tracks off-road. And we might have to ask guidance from our Ascari, who's on the back of the car, so that we can stay out after dark. I may live to regret that decision in the wake of the rain behind us. Anyway, time will tell. I don't see no lions. Focus, do you see any lions? I suppose we're not quite at the airstrip yet. We are nearing the headquarters of the Mara, and the Mara headquarters there, called Sarita, and I'm very pleased to report that Scott has not only found signal, but his best friends.
Yay! Welcome to the Musketeer Coalition, or at least one member thereof. This is Dartonian, the individual who has a GPS collar that sends a transmission at 6 o'clock every morning, provided there is no cloud cover. So there are some researchers that get that and then also provide us with that useful information as and when need be. You'll notice that his belly is quite large, especially how big a wildebeest, but they tend to be focusing on the young gnu's that were born in around January, February this year down in the southern parts of the Serengeti in Tanzania.
there are lots and lots of wildebeest around us, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens as and when these guys head out on their evening missions. I am fairly certain they are going to get up and moving fairly soon, and probably walk for around an hour or two, I'm guessing. That's kind of been their general trend. They are not nervous of walking around after dark, which is a kind of popular myth or misinformation that a lot of people, including myself, believed about cheetahs. The general notion is that they are daytime animals, but these guys are certainly moving considerably at night. Hello, boy. Morning. Shame you ate too much wildebeest for breakfast. Hello to John Michael, who would like to know if there are any cheetahs with cubs in the Mara at the moment. And yes, I am told there is one in the southern parts of the triangle. We are in the reserve, so the Mara is split up into two chunks. One is the Mara Triangle on the western side of the Mara River, and then the Mara Reserve is on the eastern side, and then there's a whole bunch of conservancies that surround the Mara ecosystem to the north and to the east. And at the moment, like I say, close to the Tanzanian border, Brent got a report that there is a female there with very small cubs. Malaika, who's a female on this side of the river, who moves through not too far from here, her two boys are coming of age where they'll be moving out, so she could have already come into season and been mated with, so she could be pregnant, or she could be getting pregnant very, very soon. So in a couple of months, or at least 3 months or so, I'm guessing we're going to have some cheetah that we can show you. There's another two females that move through this area as well, adults. So that could change, and hopefully it will change soon. I've never spent time with tiny cheetah cubs, and it certainly would be a wonderful thing to share with you guys. Okay, you'll notice there's quite a few vehicles enjoying these cheetah, all shapes and sizes. That one's quite a funny car. We may lose signal as I drive here, so let's hope, cross fingers, that we don't. It seems like they've moved out onto the other side of the thicket.
And that Alex was our Russian, and most importantly, not his Russianness, but his technical ability, has just come past you and said he didn't see anything. So I don't know what's going on, why reports are so deeply inaccurate. I think what we'll do is head towards that tree and see what we can find there. A beautiful buffalo there. We'll look at them first. Hello, buffalo. You're going to get wet, you know that, do you? Yes. It is a very old buffalo, and as I've said before, I would quite like to be a buffalo in this area, because the lions don't seem to take any interest in them whatsoever. I'm sure from time to time they get killed, but I think it's very unusual. Goodness gracious, we are going to get slammed. Alrighty. Does not look good, everybody. There's one wildebeest. In fact, there are a number in this area, which really makes me want to see the lions. So I'm sure they'll go hunting. I've never been to this airstrip. Now, Ali, you want to know if the storm scares the animals. Ellie, I don't think it scares the animals. Well, probably does. You know, there's a lot of noise and lightning, then it probably does. I think that they must be aware of it, because we think that's how wildebeest find their pastures. But there is a large herd of wildebeest in front of us, sort of snaking its way along, and it's heading straight into the teeth of the storm. So I don't think they're too scared of it at all. We'll just drive along here for a while, and then we might be very sneaky and go and park. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go and park in the aircraft hangar and hope that the pilot doesn't land his aeroplane here during the course of the storm. Now, I believe that where Scott is, it's also becoming very windy, which is excellent news for the cheetah.
It certainly is very, very chilly and windy here, and we too are a little bit concerned about this ominous weather that is about. Woo! Look at the color of those clouds. And if it does start raining, we are going to be running around like two jokers trying to tie down a ginormous tarpaulin. That did them for us, but be cautious when you get tents made in Kenya, because they are often not waterproof. So we have possibly got our work cut out for us, but at least it will be alongside 5 cheetah, this being one of them. This is the latest I've seen them sleep into the evening in the short time that I've been spending with them. Hello Velma, you'd like to know how long they will leave the collar on this cheetah. They'll probably leave it on until it stops relaying data, and I'm not an expert on the situation. VM, you've got a photo bomb coming in. Smile for the camera. And then I'm guessing around 2 years, maybe 3 years. Like I said a little bit earlier, this collar only sends one. Probably isn't the best time, because more often than not they're going to be moving then, so you'll only have a rough idea of where they are. I would probably get mine done at midday when they're most likely to be inactive, and then you can actually find them and then follow them. So we have found that even though these animals are collared, it doesn't provide us with huge amounts of useful information other than the general area that they're in. But in half an hour these animals can move 2 or 3 miles quite easily without making any efforts. Okay, well, it looks like these cheetah may slowly, you saw one move there, slowly be thinking about getting up, which will be great. Maybe they'll move into an area with a better view and better signal. But in the meantime, James has got a row of wildebeest.
I do have a row of wildebeest, everybody, and I mean, just look at that picture. Isn't that gorgeous? I mean, it is seriously ominous, but it is very gorgeous at the same time. I must say, I'm very pleased for the existence of an aircraft hangar quite close by. I don't know where these lions are. I most apologise for being so ill-informed. Well, that's how it is sometimes, you know. Just try and listen to the grass moving. I hope you don't just hear wind. Isn't that wonderful? Where they're going, who knows? I don't think they know either. Is Cedric, you're wondering about animals that don't deal well with the rain. Rain, even in this area, for the danger that rain poses is exposure. So if you have a lot of rain in a very cold night, you can absolutely... Animals can freeze to death, and the gazelles, being the smallest, are the ones that are most susceptible to that. So yes, from time to time that does happen, but otherwise, no, I don't think there's a huge vulnerability. I think they just kind of wait it out stoically without much choice. And it's interesting, from my experience with horses, if you raise a horse outside, so if it lives outside, if it's used to living outside, what happens is, even if you put a shelter up and you give the horse the option of going into the shelter during the rain or coming out or staying out, they will almost always stay out because that's just what they do. And so, although when it rains it must look to us like it's very, very uncomfortable, look at that shot. The animals are just used to it. It seems to us that, to suffer the fate of an African rainstorm must be so unpleasant when there's when you could have shelter. But these chaps, of course, well, they can't have shelter. They're not like horses. They don't have stables available to them. But I don't think that they even think about it. I don't think it affects them too much. This really is very special. It's not quite the lions I was hoping for, but it is very special. Beautiful. Alrighty, let's maybe wander on. Sinek, you're wondering about warning calls, in other words alarm calls, and whether zebra and gnus have them. They do, Sinek. A gnu will go and these Grant's zebras will make a call, as I've said before, somewhere between a neighing horse and a squeaky bicycle and a donkey. Trot, 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 off it goes. Alrighty, let's carry on. Alright, Tristan is now at water. He's obviously feeling left out by the fact that we're about to get dumped upon, and he'd like to tell you about that.
Now, we have probably one of the better sunset viewpoints on Djuma Reserve. When you're on Buffelshoek Dam Wall, it is one of the better places to stop and just watch the sun go down over the western horizon. So slowly but surely it's just disappearing there, and it means that it's making life a little drainage line, but definitely nothing crosses east. I don't think he would have run too far once the elephants had chased him. I'm sure he would have laid down once he found a place that he felt like the elephants were going to leave him alone. But he definitely was pushed on by elephants, that's for sure. There's tracks all over where he was lying, and they were even having a dust bath close to where he was left this morning. So not Tinyo's day by the looks of it. Now, I believe that there is some gremlins that are causing a little bit of a breakup in the Mara, so I do apologize if there is a breakup in stream. It's something that is being worked on, and we hopefully will get all of these things right. It amazes me that we can still bring two different destinations halfway across Africa together and still produce them from the same place. So hopefully we'll get them all sorted out, and I do apologize if there's a bit of breakup in picture and audio and those kind of things. Right, Senzo, let's see. He's not maybe He was lying underneath that tree, and then he was chased by elephants across that little riverbed system and into that thicket. So we're going to just try and see. There's a road that runs quite close to that, so I'm going to try and have a little look if he's not just lying somewhere there under those thickets, because it would have been the perfect place for a bit of shade. Buffelshoek Dam looking good as ever. It's still got lots of water in it, which is fantastic. Now, one person who's been a lot more successful than I have in tracking cats, because, well, I've tracked spotted ones and now tawny ones and still haven't come up successful, is Mr. Dyson, and he's with the Cheetah brothers.
Well, Tristan, thank you for your kind words, but there was certainly no skill involved in finding these. Patience was the biggest skill, because every person we asked for directions sent us in the opposite direction. That is why it took us 4 hours to get here. It probably should have only taken us 2.5. It was really interesting, actually. We were being sent in just about every direction imaginable, and as we would get to the latest area that we were told to go into, that vehicle would tell us we've gone in the wrong direction. So there was lots of circular motions, and that's probably due to the fact that there is not a single signboard for any of the roads in the Mara, which is quite interesting, but it certainly does make our lives a little bit tricky with regards to knowing where's where and what's what. But we are getting there slowly. It is also just so ginormous that you cannot actually really comprehend how big it is. So, yeah. Speaking of large areas, James would like to know how big the territory is of this coalition. I've never been in this area with them, but from 10 miles, possibly a little bit more, to the north, and I do know they range further north than there. So I think their territory is probably quite actually sit down with the researchers and pick their brains and work out a little bit more about these guys, but we just simply haven't had time yet. But yeah, it is a very, very large area, and every time I see them, it is in a new area. Okay, well, it sounds like the signal is not very good. I wonder what this cheetah's seen. Well, it seems to have gone back to ease at the moment, and due to this shaky picture, we are going to send you over to James.
We aren't going to have any shaky picture here. We are way up on a little mountain. The mountain is a strong term, hillock, if you like, just the other side of the airstrip, and I'm trying desperately to scan the area for that which we came seeking. And I'm thus far failing dismally. Anyway, it looks like the area we're sitting in now has actually had some rain. It's probably not going to rain here again. Why do I say that? That's absolute rubbish. It could easily rain here again. Isn't that a beautiful view? Looking down over the Wildebeest, those are the ones that we saw running there. And jerking, you can see, is our Ascari leaving the vehicle. Wonderful. I'm not sure why he's left. He's had enough of my voice, I think, waffling on at him. Just quite spectacularly beautiful scenes we have here. Very peaceful, but for the possibility of being slammed by the storm. Yes, okay, I spotted him. He's, well, he's just got a little bit of time. He needs some time. What have you seen? Some more rain. Mm-hmm. Can you see Scott? I can't see Scott. Scott is somewhere in that direction, everybody. It looks like it's getting a bit blustery, that area as well. Steffi, you want to know it's very cold? Steffi, no, it's not cold. It's probably about, I would say, 21 or 19, 20 degrees Celsius. She's around about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's not very cold. Just under that, 68. So it is certainly a little bit. It's chillsome. It's getting there, and I think if the water does come, it will get cold. But it's not too bad now. The amount of time I've spent today with my eyes pinned into these binoculars. Alrighty, let's get on from here. Tristan, rather like me, I believe, is struggling to find any cats. I shall go and commiserate with him via you.
We are indeed, James. It's been a bit of a struggle this afternoon. It's been quite difficult. Unfortunately, the Ellies have put a bit of a spanner in the works when it came to I don't know why I can't speak this afternoon, but when it came to Tinyo, can't find any sign of him coming out on the other side, and he might be down in that deep drainage, but there's nothing really that I can see for him, and with it getting dark now, tracking of cats is cool. Come on, Rusty, behave yourself. I've changed back to Rusty. Maybe that's the mistake I made. Wendy was bringing me lots of good luck. I had many sightings in Wendy this week. Maybe I should have stuck in Wendy and not swapped her out for Rusty, but she was... Why are you laughing, Zenzo? Maybe she got jealous and now she's teaching me a lesson. But in all seriousness, she needed a service today, so she was in the workshop, and that's why I'm in Rusty. Hold on a second. Oh, come on, Rusty, get into reverse. Just wanted to see... Nope, those are not lion tracks. I thought maybe I had spotted tracks for a lion, but they are for hyenas from last night, not even from now, which is a bit depressing. Paul, you're wondering how many lion prides and coalitions we see in this area. Well, at the moment we have one coalition called the Birmingham Males. Every now and then there is a fairly nomadic coalition called the Matimbas that walks through here. They were seen about a week ago, not here on Djuma, but right next to us and not far away at all. So they sometimes are seen in this area, but generally just the Birminghams. And then in terms of prides, there is the Inkuhuma pride, which is our pride we see the most. Then we have the Styx pride to the south, and then the Torchwood pride to the northeast. So those are the three prides that surround this area or move around in this area. Every now and then we might get the Salala pride coming through, but that's very seldom that they head in this direction. For the most part, they spend their time southwest of us. And then there's the Majingalan coalition to the southwest as well, but again, they hardly ever set foot on Djuma. In fact, I can't even remember the last time they would have been up in this area. So that's it, just those three prides, but two that we see more regularly than the other one. So with the Inkuhuma pride still being our most prominent pride that we have in this particular area. Now the lion we're trying to track now is just one of those four coalition members. The three of them are out and about in other places. I actually have no idea where they are this afternoon. I've not heard an update on the other three, just know about this one that we had here. And I was hoping that while we were driving around he might start to roar and we would pick up some sort of sound somewhere here, but alas, it seems as though it's still a little early in the evening and he's only going to roar a bit later. Definitely nothing coming out to this northern side, so he's somewhere in there. Just battle to find him, that's all. Wonder if it's not worth just checking Nyala Road north in case he maybe crossed over and the elephants obliterated his tracks, because the elephants walked everywhere around Buffelshoek Dam, and as we saw, it was a really big herd that came through, so it's not surprising that they've destroyed some of the tracks that are around. So maybe he's just crossed over and headed towards Nyala Road north, and so it will be... Let's go and check there quickly if he hasn't crossed in that direction. Now, talking about lions and prides, one thing that Masai Mara has got is lions in droves. And I know James has been looking this afternoon and hasn't found them, but they are there, and maybe he can give us more information as to how many prides they see on that side of the world.
Well, I'm not sure about how many lions there are. I don't believe there are any anymore. I believe, Paul, you were asking about how many prides there are here. It's very difficult to say outright. I'll run through the ones that we know of in the triangle area, which is about, well, how big's the triangle? It's gone out of my head entirely. 500, it's about the same size as Sabi Sand, so it's about 50,000 hectares or so. And we have the Olololo Pride, the Agama Pride, the Sausage Tree Pride, the Egyptian Goose Pride, the Magoro Pride, the Paradise Plains Pride, the Serena North Pride, which is probably the same as the Paradise Plains Pride, just a different offshoot. We have an enormous pride called the Border Pride down on the bottom, about 30 lions or so, quite nervous. And there's something in between. Oh, we've got the Salt Lick Pride. And there are probably one or two that we don't know about. And at this time of the year, of course, a large number of marauding nomads who will be sort of territorial, not non-territorial male lions still looking for territory, and they will be sort of busy in the area and following the migration herds. Maybe we can have a look down over there. Now, that direction that we're looking in is pretty much due east. Oops, sorry about that. Sorry, I dropped the clutch. That's pretty much due east. And that is into the Masai Mara National Reserve, which is managed differently from the... I'm just trying to think here, differently from the triangle, but actually that's more accurately where Scott is. In fact... There's a camera facing. That's the Mara River. If we go pan left from there, once you've finished showing us that beautiful scene, you will see eventually there. You can see a confluence of two bits of green, and if you keep going left, you can see one of them then snakes off. See, way behind there, there's another patch of green there. That, I think, is the Talek River, and that's where Scott is, and that's why there's no signal, because it's a valley. And so they'll be hunting the wildebeest on those plains this evening, I'm pretty sure. Isn't that nice? I think that's just very special. Steffi, you want to know about the vegetation of the Mara? It's actually a pretty simple story, really. It's grassland largely, with a few bits of savanna in between. Savanna is grassland with a few trees in it, basically. And it's so thick and so fertile because the soil here has been subjected to some fairly recent volcanic activity, so within the last few thousands of years, if you like. In fact, continuously over the last few million years. And that, of course, makes the soil very fertile, and that fertility has given rise to these very thick grasslands and very nutritious grasslands, which in turn support the vast herds of animals that come through here. And I think what's so interesting about it is I was watching a balloon sequence the other day, and the balloon flying over giant herds of wildebeest. I think what was so interesting about that was and the existence of the herbivores in this area. This grassland would look very, very different because, of course, they produce a huge amount of fertilizer, they trample the seeds into the grass, and of course they take off the moribund or dry material, allowing for new growth. And so without the herbivores, this place would look completely different. And what's fascinating is that around about 1970, which is, of course, and I'm sure it happened before that, but this was around about when we started studying the place extensively, the population of grazing herbivores in the area reached its current number, which is about 2 million or so, and it has self-regulated, which I think is fascinating. Of course it will dip and go up and down in a kind of dynamic equilibrium.